Chicago is betting $16 billion on 4 megaprojects that will reshape how the Midwest moves, plays, and competes. That's more than what most American cities spend on infrastructure in a generation. But here's the problem. America's third-largest city has been running on aging infrastructure for decades. The South Side has waited over a century for proper transit. O'Hare operates out of terminals designed when passenger volumes were half what they are today. And the Bears still play in a stadium older than most of their fans' parents. Now Chicago is fixing all of it at once. A $5.7 billion subway extension, an $8.5 billion airport transformation, and a series of highway upgrades to tie it all together. Will they finish, or will these projects join the long list of Midwestern dreams that stalled out? Chicago has always been a city that builds big. The railroads, the skyscrapers, the highways that carved through neighborhoods. But for decades, that momentum stalled. Transit lines weren't extended. Airports weren't modernized. Now federal dollars are flowing, shovels are hitting the ground, and the pressure to deliver is real. So what's actually under construction? Let's break it down. Project 1. CTA Red Line Extension. The Red Line is Chicago's spine. It runs 23 miles from Howard on the north side to 95th Street on the south side, carrying over 200,000 riders daily. It's the busiest line in the CTA system. But here's the thing. The Red Line stops at 95th Street. South of that, in neighborhoods like Roseland, Pullman, and West Pullman, residents have no direct rail access to downtown. They rely on buses that crawl through traffic. A trip that takes 20 minutes by car can take over an hour on transit. That's the problem the Red Line extension is solving. For $5.7 billion, Chicago is extending the Red Line 5.5 miles south from 95th Street to 130th Street, adding 4 brand new stations at 103rd, 111th, Michigan Avenue near 116th, and 130th Street. This is the largest transit expansion in Chicago in over 30 years. Construction begins in early 2026. The CTA has divided the project into 6 zones, allowing crews to work simultaneously across multiple sites. The goal is completion by 2030. The financing is locked in. CTA finalized a $1.9 billion agreement with the Federal Transit Administration, the largest federal transit grant in Illinois history. Combined with state and local funding, the project is fully funded before the first shovel hits the ground. For residents of the far south side, the impact is transformational. Travel times to downtown will drop by up to 30 minutes. Direct access to jobs, hospitals, and universities that currently require multiple transfers. The economic ripple effects are massive. 12,500 construction jobs and 59,800 indirect jobs across the region. New stations mean new development, retail, housing, and services clustering around transit hubs. Critics point to cost overruns on other CTA projects. Supporters argue the economic benefits will far exceed the investment. This isn't just a train extension. It's a test of whether Chicago can deliver transit equity to communities that have been systematically underserved for generations. From the far south side, the transformation shifts northwest. Because while the Red Line connects neighborhoods that have waited too long, O'Hare is about something different, competing on a global stage. Project 2. O'Hare ORD Next. O'Hare International handles 83 million passengers annually, one of the busiest airports in the world. United's largest hub, American's second largest, a critical connection point for flights across the globe. And it's operating out of infrastructure designed when passenger volumes were half what they are today. For $8.5 billion, Chicago is completely reimagining O'Hare through the ORD Next program. New terminals, new concourses, modernized gates, a passenger experience designed for the 21st century. And if you're enjoying this breakdown of Chicago's transformation, hit subscribe. We've got deep dives on megaprojects from New York to Singapore coming up next. Here's what's happening right now. Concourse D, Satellite 1, is a $1.3 billion project adding 590,000 square feet across 3 levels with 19 new gates. Vertical construction begins spring 2026, completion scheduled for 2028. The project alone creates over 3,800 construction jobs. Terminal 3 is getting a $200 million renovation called Elevate T3, reconfigured passenger flows, 10,000 square feet of new retail and dining. Completion expected summer 2027. But the centerpiece is the O'Hare Global Terminal, designed by Studio Gang and Chicago architect Gene Gang. It completely replaces Terminal 2, on track for 2032. And by 2034, Satellite Concourse 2 adds another 24 gates. Here's the challenge: building an airport while operating an airport. O'Hare can't shut down. Every project must be phased to keep passengers moving and flights operating. It's like rebuilding a ship at sea. For Chicago, the stakes are enormous. O'Hare generates billions in regional GDP. Falling behind other hubs means losing connections, losing airlines, losing the business travelers who drive the city's economy. This isn't just about moving passengers. It's about whether Chicago remains a global city, from runways to end zones. Because Chicago's transformation isn't just about transit and airports. It's also about where the city plays, and whether one of the NFL's most storied franchises will stay in Illinois at all. Project 3. Chicago Bears Stadium. Soldier Field opened in 1924. It's the oldest stadium in the NFL. The Bears have committed over $2 billion to build a new world-class stadium in Arlington Heights on the site of the old Arlington Park racetrack. The team purchased the 326-acre property in February 2023 for $197.2 million. The vision is ambitious: a domed stadium rivaling SoFi in Los Angeles and Allegiant in Las Vegas. Modern amenities, year-round events, Super Bowl-ready infrastructure that could host the biggest games in football. If the state legislature approves the funding framework, construction could begin in 2026 with the stadium opening by 2031. The deadline is 2027 for the Bears to commit before tax provisions expire. But here's the risk. The project has stalled over $826 million in public infrastructure funding, roads, utilities, and transit connections the development needs. In December 2025, the Bears expanded their site search to include Northwest Indiana. The threat is real. Illinois could lose one of its most iconic franchises. The projected economic impact is substantial: over 56,000 construction job years, more than 9,000 permanent jobs, and $60 million in new annual tax revenue. Critics argue public funding for billionaire-owned stadiums is a bad deal. Supporters say the development will revitalize the entire northwest suburbs. This isn't just about football. It's about whether Illinois can compete for major investments, or watch them cross the border, from stadiums to streets. Because none of these megaprojects work if people can't actually get there. And Chicago's highway infrastructure? It's showing its age. Project 4. IDOT Highway and Bridge Projects. Every year, millions of vehicles cross Chicago's bridges and expressways. Structures built in the 1950s and 60s, designed for traffic volumes that no longer exist. Many are past their intended lifespan. The Illinois Department of Transportation is rebuilding them, one by one. Foster Avenue over the Kennedy Expressway. Bridge replacement began in 2024, completion anticipated 2026. I-290 at Independence Boulevard, a major bridge replacement starting 2029, finishing 2031. U.S. 12 at Stony Island Avenue and I-55 at Cicero Avenue, both beginning 2027, both complete by 2028. These aren't glamorous projects. No ribbon cuttings. No architectural renderings. But they're essential. Every bridge that fails inspection, every highway that crumbles, costs the region in delays, detours, and economic productivity. The challenge is timing. Bridge work means lane closures. Lane closures mean traffic. And Chicago drivers already spend an average of 100 hours per year stuck in congestion. But here's the thing. Infrastructure doesn't wait. Defer maintenance long enough, and repair becomes replacement. Replacement becomes emergency. IDOT is betting that systematic upgrades now prevent catastrophic failures later. This isn't just about bridges. It's about the invisible backbone that makes everything else possible. Chicago has always been a city that builds. The railroads that made it a national hub. The skyscrapers that defined its skyline. The infrastructure that shaped how America moves. Now $16 billion is reshaping it again. By 2030, the Red Line reaches the far south side. By 2034, O'Hare becomes an airport worthy of a global city. By 2031, if deals come together, the Bears play in one of the most advanced stadiums in America. And beneath it all, bridges and highways are quietly being rebuilt. These aren't just infrastructure projects. They're a bet that Chicago can still build at scale, that decades of underinvestment can be reversed, that a city written off by some as declining can prove it still competes with anyone. If Chicago succeeds, it proves something important, that Midwestern cities aren't past their prime, that with the right funding and political will, transformation is possible. If it fails, if budgets balloon, projects stall, and the Bears leave for Indiana, then $16 billion becomes another story of what Chicago could have been. What kind of Chicago do you see emerging on the other side? Drop your take in the comments. And if stories like this interest you, subscribe. We cover the world's boldest infrastructure projects and the race to complete them.